So today we're going to be talking about how to complete but not compete in the rare version of the Clash of Knights event. My executive summary for this video is that the Clash of Knights event is not worth competing in unless you have unlimited resources. It is a very difficult event, it is a resource drain, and there are far better events in the game that will get more bang for your buck in terms of items and energy. So again, just to set everyone's expectations, this video is not about getting a high score. This is aimed at anyone struggling just to complete the final stage of rare at the Clash of Knights events. In a moment, I'll be going through my 3 tips to complete rare Clash of Knights stage 10. But before we talk about those, let me quickly touch on team composition. Now, I'm not going to be going into team composition too much, but I would recommend having a mono team for these events. A mono team is 5 heroes of the same element. It doesn't matter what element that is. However, it is much easier to spot a good board from a bad board when using a mono team, which makes helping to complete this event much easier. If you don't have a 3-star mono team, I recommend building one for future events like this. They'll also be useful in other challenge events and 3-star tournaments. So if you don't have one, please consider building one. So the first tip I'm going to give you today is to bring antidotes. It might seem like a very easy tip. However, the first morning of the event, I tried to work my way through this, and it is much harder with all of that dot damage you are receiving. Antidotes aren't used in many other areas of the game, so hopefully you have a stockpile of them ready for this event. Basically, you want to be using your antidotes early and often to get rid of the dot damage from the poison damage from the bosses and the enemies in the stages before. You also want to be firing them as soon as those traps go off. Along with the antidotes, I am going to be taking arrows, I'm going to be taking axes. The 4th spot is up to you. You can either take HP for more durability, or you can take mana so you can get more special skills firing more often. But ideally you want to be saving all of your battle items other than antidotes for the boss stage. That said, you may want to use an axe or an arrow occasionally just to help you clear the last bit of the stage without ruining a perfectly good board. With that in mind, I want to talk about tip 2. Tip 2 is all about fleeing from bad boards. Now, I know a lot of people are not going to like the idea of wasting world energy on this event or anywhere else. However, you must avoid the temptation of trying to play a bad board and using your battle items in order to try and complete the event and not manage it. Your battle items are so much more valuable than world energy. So please don't hold it against yourself to flee from a bad board, a board that's not going to work and you're not going to complete the stage, and hopefully try and find another board that will. And this is why I recommend building a mono team. It's far easier to spot a good board from a bad board, and you'll be able to flee easily and save battle items and your time and efforts for another stage. I have included some examples here of bad boards that I have fled from myself. Unfortunately, it's far too tempting to use those battle items on a bad board if you don't flee. As you can see in the current example, I was even tempted to use an antidote trying to make the best of a bad situation, but please learn from my example. Don't do that and just flee the board. There will be better boards eventually, or at least I hope there will be. Right, so we have our antidotes, we have our good starting board. So the last tip is play slowly and carefully. Basically, on each wave, we're trying to get down to one opponent and one opponent only. We are then going to try and farm the board to try and get as much of our element as possible, in this case red, to take on the next stage. One thing to keep in mind is that we are going to be setting off a lot of traps by working slowly and carefully, so there is a slight constraint on this. This is why it's important to have a good starting board, but working through the stage using arrows and axes where necessary to avoid counterattacks, and using antidotes to avoid dot damage, we can maybe work to a place where we have diamonds set up. We have a lot of tiles, in this case red tiles, ready for our 3 bosses. And in our best case scenario, we're still going to have most of our arrows and axes remaining to take on those bosses too. Against the bosses, what we want to do is try and take out one of the bosses as quickly as possible. That will give us some room for ghosting tiles, which will increase the chances of having more specials. In this example, I was able to set up the board, so I had lots of red and I had a red diamond, so I was able to take out all 3 bosses quite quickly. There you have it. I have completed the stage a few times. I've shown you 3 tips: bringing antidotes, fleeing from bad boards, and working slowly but surely across the stages in order to have a great board against those bosses at the end of the stage. Again, I really don't think you should be pushing others in your alliance or yourself to really get a high score on this event. There are far better places out there to get better loot. I hope this video was useful. If you did like it, please leave a like and comment below, and subscribe if you haven't already.